Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Steve Barber, and joining me is my talkative co-host, Waylon Davis.
Hey, everybody.
And he's going to be doing all the talking on this one.
Oh yeah, because I've been sick and my voice is, as you can tell, my voice is a little sketchy. So
yeah, so kind of forgive us. I mean, hey, things happen, and I would say right now your voice is probably an improvement over the past couple of days.
oh yeah.
So if anything keeps us from recording, it's serious. So because we do love doing this. It gets kind of addicting at times.
Yeah.
That we like putting out a good product. And if either one of us are sick, because I've had the COVID, Waylon's had the COVID, and if it affects how we think it's gonna, how we perceive the show, then we're like, maybe not, or if we just can't do it. I mean,
right.
Because nobody wants to, somebody to be on the show and all of a sudden pass out. But today we are going to be talking about the evolution of WrestleMania, because in 3 days, WrestleMania 38 is going to be happening.
Yep.
At least the first night of it on Saturday night down in Dallas.
Yeah.
And we're planning on giving a preview of that show tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You think? As long as your voice holds up.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen, but yeah, if your voice, if your voice has still gotten kind of bad, I think we may postpone that to maybe Friday. But once Mania the day hits, it's done, because I don't know about you, but there's something else actually happening on Saturday that I'm honestly probably going to be paying more attention to, and that'll be hopefully the day that Coach Krzyzewski from Duke has to, his final game, because Carolina is going to be, beating them. I'm not going to say giving them a beat down, because I know better than that. But but hopefully Carolina beats them and goes on to the championship game. That's the Final Four.
Yep.
And that I'm still just, I cannot believe that not long before the tournament, North Carolina was a bubble team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now they're going to be in now they're in the Final Four. I'm just, and they're going to be playing Duke.
Mm-hmm. First time ever.
The only thing that would make this better is if it was the actual championship game.
Yeah.
And Krzyzewski's last, if Krzyzewski, this is it. They beat Duke at Cameron for his last home game.
Yeah.
What better for it to spoil this one? Because when you're leaving something, you should always leave on your back.
Yeah. So that is the old wrestling rule. Yep.
Exactly. Besides that, some news stories, for wrestling. Triple H retiring. That was actually supposed to be our original show for this past Monday.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like I said, I'm not going to have the risk of Dwaylen, losing his voice permanently. Because I'm pretty sure you don't want to make that risk either.
No.
And so one day, hopefully next week, maybe we'll actually talk more about Triple H, because I think that is something that definitely needs a show all on its own. Because all the contributions he's made, and then just going over like the issues that forced him to retire. Well, retiring from in-ring action.
Right.
So, he's done. He will not wrestle again.
No.
So, and then the other news, and this may not have been as big of a news story, except for, old school fans like us, but, you text me and said Rocky King passed away.
Yeah. I saw it on Twitter. And then a friend of mine sent me a little clip from YouTube where somebody had talked about it.
That's for those who don't know who Rocky King was, he was largely considered an enhancement talent in the Carolinas. So if he was in a match, he was probably going to lose.
Yeah.
But he was one of the ones you always recognized it. You could say, hey, name one of the guys who name an enhancement talent, Rocky King. It'd be like George South, Rocky King, and like Gene Ligon. I don't know. That'd be some names, but Rocky King would always be in there.
Yeah.
And I do remember when he got a little bit of a push with Jimmy Valiant as his partner.
I remember that.
Yep. Because Rocky King, he also he had the fro,
Mhm.
and it was really bad looking too. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it was, but when he was with Boogie Woogie Man, he actually had it down into braids.
Yeah.
Like with the
Yeah.
beaded braids, because that was kind of a
Mhm.
thing in the mid '80s.
Yeah.
I couldn't pull that off. It just wouldn't come. But because, and I don't remember how that feud started. It was, or how that partnership started. He was in a enhancement tag match. I don't remember who his partner was, but they were against the Midnight Express. And after the match, or maybe it was during the match, they, um, I don't remember if it was Condry, if it was Lane. I don't remember who the partner was, but he put Rocky King in a Boston Crab, and then Beautiful Bobby came off the top rope with a few knee drops.
Mhm.
And I was thinking back then, there is no way you can't fake that. I mean, he's actually coming. Then you come to find out later on, Bobby Eaton was
Yeah,
known.
one of the safest guys ever.
Yeah. And so that's when they put him with Boogie Woogie Man. And so I'll always remember that. Then they just kind of stopped.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, feud just ended, and he went back to being enhancement talent. But he had been doing a lot. I want to say he was doing a lot of stuff for the homeless. They're
Mhm.
around like the
Yeah.
Raleigh area.
Yeah.
Um, so he had got his name out there because he'd gone through some personal struggles, and so he was actually helping people out who also had their own struggles.
You're right.
So um, and I thought that was pretty cool of him actually. And so I was glad that people knew him more than just, hey, he was a wrestler who was an enhancement talent,
Right.
because the person was way more than that.
Yeah.
So definitely Rocky King, rest in peace. So
Absolutely.
um, the other news is past weekend. Of course, everybody's been talking about it, whether they watched it live or not, but everybody's seen the video.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Will Smith and Chris Rock. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, because everybody's been talking about it.
Yeah.
I may have even posted a couple of memes about it. I don't know. In fact, I just posted one probably a couple hours ago that had more combined with it, kind of combined with it. But I've had, I'm seeing some people saying, "Oh, it's fake." The others, "Oh no, it's real." They're another, "Oh, look at, oh, he was laughing before that, but she said you better get up there." I'm like, I mean, it's definitely got people's attention, but I don't think it was intentional to get,
Yeah.
I mean, I know how I'd be if somebody were to make kind of a tasteless joke about my wife.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I know how I would be too. So I can't. I mean, I'm not going to say I fault him because I don't. Because it's just like some people, not like you said, not to get really into it, but I've seen a lot on Facebook, and people are like, "Well, he shouldn't have done that, and there was a better way to handle it." Maybe so, but he'd also already had this conversation with Chris Rock before
mhm.
to stop making jokes about his wife, and he made another one. So it's like I feel like the talking was done. So I'm not advocating violence, but sometimes you got to get people's attention.
Yeah, I mean, he did the joke in public. He got handled in public.
Exactly.
You know,
Thank you.
um, but since that was on the Oscars, of course, that leads me to think about movies. And and since we'd already talked about basketball, got to combine movies and basketball for the next thing I'm going to say before we start really getting into the reason why we're here. And there was a movie that debuted 30 years ago about basketball.
Yep. White men can't jump.
Yep. And I could not tell you how many times I've watched that movie.
I love that movie. That movie's so good.
I think I still have it on VHS somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, because I got it on VHS probably when I was like 20 or 21. Because I remember I was stationed in Japan and I bought it at the base exchange.
Yeah.
And I watched. I mean, I love that movie. I mean, it's been a while now since I've seen it, but I could almost quote that movie verbatim there for a little bit.
Yeah. It's so good.
Even like the obscure lines like, "That, my friend, is Ghana. You're
Yeah.
shooting for the Sudan."
Yeah.
and um and the whole, "You could put a cat in the oven, that'll make him a biscuit." I think everybody
Yeah.
quotes that and they don't even know
Yep.
where it's from.
Yep.
Um and then foods that start with the letter Q. But yeah, white men can't jump 30 years. I mean, can you believe that?
I can't believe it. It's
I mean,
crazy.
Oh, and then also this past weekend, this was a spur of the moment thing, just because I was watching them, and they said something about, man, I wish we had a guest, and so I sent somebody a text, said, hey, send me the link. Next thing you know, I was a guest on Jay and Trey.
Cool.
So it was just, and so we talked about wrestling. We talked, some about WrestleMania. I actually mentioned Monday we're going to do a show with Triple H, and
Yeah.
well, things happen.
Yeah.
But I actually bought one of their shirts earlier. Of course, I have to wait, a couple weeks for it to get here, because it does take that long. I will say that about TeePublic. If anybody who orders one of our shirts, it may take a couple weeks for it to get there.
Right.
But because they actually have to go and make the shirt. They don't have them just sitting there waiting for people to buy them. We're not that popular yet, but you can help us with that. Seriously.
Yeah.
But they have a new design for their logo, and I actually bought a shirt with their new design.
Cool. Yeah, I saw their new logo on Instagram.
Yep. It looks really cool. They have an artist friend of theirs do it, and I'm like, all right, cool. And I always want to give those guys a shout out, because they always give us shout outs. Even in fact, on their show, I was not just Saturday, but yesterday I was able to actually catch their show in the middle of the day, which I haven't been able to do, for a few weeks, because work has just been so hectic. And during their breaks, they play like a little video thing. One of their video breaks is actually our intro.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So they're definitely putting us out there,
Yeah.
helping us out. So anything we can do to help them out, I'm like, yes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
And also somebody else who's been giving us shout outs as well is Ted the Hillbilly Hill at the Hill Truth podcast. They are trending #1 in Antarctica and on MySpace, award winning. And in all seriousness, he does do a great podcast, because
yes, he does.
Yeah, I like the way he does it. It's very original, coming from like a heel perspective. And when his latest episode was about 50-50 booking, but he really, really breaks it down about how it's not good for a wrestler to have that 50-50 booking, because he said, he actually compared it to the Carolina Panthers, because he lives in North Carolina, which, by the way, talking with him, he actually was not born in North Carolina. He was actually born in Virginia, but he lived near the Kentucky border, so he's actually a UK fan. And I was like, oh, well, I mentioned, I was like, well, I said, Dwaylen was actually born and raised in Kentucky. I said, but as a diehard North Carolina fan, I said, I said, we've actually talked about how we're both pretty sure that breaks some kind of Commonwealth law somewhere. So, and for anybody who has lived in Kentucky, you probably know what we're talking about. It's either Kentucky, and if you're up near Jefferson County, Louisville, maybe.
Yep.
So, but he was actually talking about the Carolina Panthers. I'm talking about, Ted. But he was comparing it to the Carolina Panthers. He said they've been one of the teams that, for the most part, they are always sitting around 500.
Yes.
They've had their good years. A couple years went to the Super Bowl. Then a couple years after that, they will be back in the cellar again, and then kind of slowly rise up to the middle. And he said, and nobody wants to support a team that's in the middle.
Right.
So that's what he was comparing the 50-50 booking to. And I'm like, you know what? He's got a point. He's got a really good point there.
Yeah.
But definitely go check him out. And while you're checking out podcasts, go check out the True Crime Cast and the Buster Hearts podcast from Jamie and John. There's a couple of guys. They've also supported us, and they've had me on their Buster Heart podcast. They've actually used a couple of the stories I wrote and sent to them for the True Crime Cast. And they've been on Jericho 3 times. They've had Jericho on theirs. Ooh. And they support us. So so we got some celebrity links there.
Yeah.
But yeah, another two great guys. And so anybody you want to shout out, Dwaylen, while you can't talk?
No, I think you covered everything.
Okay. And speaking of covering everything, let's go ahead and get our contact and listen info. If anybody would like to email us, it's armchairbookingpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/armchairbookingpodcast. You can find us on Instagram at armchairbookingpodcast. You can find us on Twitter at bookingarmchair. Find us on TikTok at armchairbookingpodcast. You can find us on YouTube. Obviously, if you're watching the video, you already know that. But you can also find us on just about any audio platform there is. If we're not on there, let us know. We will try to get ourselves added. Yes, iHeartRadio still sucks. We've already discussed that. And last but not least, we are hosted by Block Talk Radio. So I believe I covered everything.
Yeah.
I think I did it with while taking like one breath.
Yeah.
That's hard to do in my old age now. Haven't smoked in like almost 6 years, so my lungs have started to heal up a lot better than what they used to be. But the reason why we're here talking about the evolution of WrestleMania, kind of similar to what we did like an evolution of the Royal Rumble, a couple months ago. Except for WrestleMania obviously it's actually not that much older. It's only 3 years older.
Yeah.
So when you hear about WrestleMania, I mean, well, I'm not going to say necessarily for this year, but usually, we get excited.
Yeah, usually I'm like really excited about WrestleMania, and it's like culmination of all these storylines, and it's kind of like sort of like the end of their year, because everything after that's kind of like a reset. Well, after Backlash, of course, because usually they do a lot of rematches, but yeah, I mean it's a big deal. It's just I'm not that excited for this year's. I don't feel like that they booked it. I don't feel like they booked it or promoted it very well this year.
And you see, they added another match this past Monday, right? Remember when I texted you and I was like, "Hey, Bobby Lashley's already back."
Yeah.
And then I looked and he was again having a thing with Almost. And as soon as I said it, I was like, "Oh no."
I don't understand that. It's like that's as bad as having Drew McIntyre in this nothing feud with Happy Corbin. It's like you've got two guys that are former world champions, and you're sticking them in nothing matches at, storyline wise, neither of these matches are going to get these guys any closer to the title.
No, they're not. And I get with Almost, I mean, they do need somebody for him to, have a match with, because I mean, he's big and he's a monster. I mean, but Lashley's, especially Lashley coming back from a legitimate injury, is just not the person to do it.
And my thing is, it's like, so you either have Omos lose, and there goes all your time you spent building him into this monster, excuse me, or you have him beat Bobby Lashley, and then it's like you waste a former WWE champion, getting squashed by a rookie.
Right. I don't care if he's 7'3".
I don't either. The dude's still green.
Very green.
I understand giving him some wins, but not against Bobby Lashley, not at WrestleMania.
Well, not only that, but Lashley, I mean, like I said, he's coming back from a legitimate shoulder injury.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Almost to do it on purpose, but somebody that big, he probably literally does not know his own strength.
Well, they're thinking one of the guys from the Viking Raiders might be legitimately hurt.
Because of the other night.
The other night, he took a clothesline from Omos, and I really think he was hurt, because like the way he reacted to that clothesline, I was like, that did not look like it went well.
And I don't remember, actually maybe in Jay and Trey, or it could have been another podcast, they were talking about the Viking Raiders and how that just totally killed them by having them lose that.
Yeah. A count out loss in a handicap match. One, they should be challenging for tag titles.
Exactly.
And, really it should be nothing against Shinsuke or Rick Boogs, but it should be the Viking Raiders and the Usos for the SmackDown tag titles.
Yes. Absolutely.
At WrestleMania.
Oh, but sadly, the first WrestleMania in 1985, and I know the origins of how it all came about.
Mm-hmm.
Vince McMahon, we'll go back in history a little bit for the fans, who are listening to us who actually don't know this part of the history. There was Georgia Championship Wrestling, which was based out of Georgia, based out of Atlanta, and they had their Saturday morning program. Vince McMahon bought it, but what he really bought was not the territory. He was buying that slot.
Yep.
And it wasn't the show wasn't called Georgia Championship. I think the show may have actually been called World Championship Wrestling.
I think it was.
Yeah, I have to verify that, but he bought it. They didn't even tell anybody. They just people, turned into morning Saturday morning. Black Saturday is what they're calling it now.
Black Saturday. Yep.
And they're expecting to see Georgia Championship Wrestling. Instead, they see Vince McMahon. And with some pre-recorded matches coming out of New York, they had no idea who the wrestlers were because the wrestling was very territorial. I mean, literally. I mean, if they didn't keep up with it with the magazines, they didn't know who those other wrestlers were.
Right.
And that lasted 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And they came back to like, Vince, this isn't going to work. And so
no, because he came into a Southern territory.
Pushing Northern wrestling.
And back then, like Steve said, that was extremely territorial, and that just wasn't going to work. The Southern fans were not going to accept that style of wrestling.
Right. And just like the Northern fans also would not accept like we saw this happen, like the bunkhouse matches and things like that, which were very Southern. I mean, it's just, it's not right or wrong. It's just, just what it is. And so Vince McMahon sold it back to, it may be, the Briscoes are who sold it to him to begin with, but I don't think they're the ones who bought it back. I think it was, I think that's when the Crockett's bought it.
Yes. That's when the Crockett's bought it. Yeah.
And they bought it for, I think it was just a straight up $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And Vince used that to finance WrestleMania.
Yeah, because Vince put every dime he had. I mean, it was literally make or break for him. He put every dime he had into WrestleMania.
Yep. And if the very first one had not have worked, the company probably would have folded.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. If he couldn't have pulled that off, there was no way he could have moved forward. He would have been bankrupt.
And at this moment, because this was in late March of '85, I had still never watched a WWF match. I didn't watch my first WWF match until a few months later when I was at somebody else's house who had one of the great big satellite dishes.
Those giant ones that look like you could actually live in the satellite dish.
I just tilted up. All right.
Just okay.
All right. Yeah. It's not supposed to rain. You'll be all right. Because we actually didn't have cable at the time. Just where we lived at. There in Aberdeen, North Carolina, just the road we lived on. Cable was not available yet.
Right.
So I was kind of jealous of my friends who had the USA Network. Because they were able to watch WWF.
Yeah.
But that first event, if you look at the matches on there, and it's really wild. If you go back and actually watch it on the network, it looks weird. I really don't know how to describe it. It just looks weird compared to all the pageantry and the production values that they have now.
Yeah. It's still like, I've gone back and tried to watch some of it, and it's like, for me, it doesn't age very well.
No, it doesn't.
But it still had that, it wasn't nearly as slick as everything with WWE is now, and it still had that grimy old school look to it, which always appeals to me because I kind of like that style. But it's if you go back and watch it and then watch like last year's WrestleMania, it's a shock how different it looks back then.
and even though last year and last year is when they had like the third of the stadium full in Tampa. So I'd probably go back to like 2019 to get like the last real,
full,
and just where was that one? Do you remember?
I do not.
Let's see, 38, 37, 36, 35. Were they back in New Orleans?
Was that Lesnar and Reigns in the main event?
I could actually say yes, and I'd probably have about a 33% chance of getting it right. Let's see, that was 30, 35. That was in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But
at MetLife.
Yep, at MetLife. Let's see.
Used to be the Meadowlands.
Yeah. And where they had the New York Giants and the New York Jets play.
Yeah.
Never. I mean, that's another thing. It is what it is. The Jets have been perennial losers now, for over 50 years. But that's another story. The main event for this one, I did not remember this. This wasn't the main event, but Roman Reigns was against Drew McIntyre. I did not remember that.
Yeah, I remember them wrestling at Mania.
No, the main event, this one was Becky, Ronda, Charlotte.
That's right. Right. That was the 7-hour long Mania.
Yeah, one of them.
Where everybody where everybody was exhausted. That's right, because that's where Kofi won the title.
Yeah, he beat Daniel Bryan, and the Iconics won the women's tag belts.
That's right.
Kane and the Miz, the Falls Count Anywhere. But I mean, if you look, that was in MetLife State. Kind of ironic. I mean, if you want to say down the road, but it was Madison Square Garden was the first one.
Yeah.
Which, the way Vince Sr. used to say, the Garden is the Garden is the Garden. I mean, it is the mecca of entertainment. But then going from that, which holds what, 20, actually not even 20,000 people, I don't think. We'll say 10,000, 15,000 people.
Yeah.
You can put in there to watch wrestling, because you really don't need a lot of room for the wrestling ring.
Right.
You don't. For those who've never actually been to a match, when you go into an arena to watch a match, or to watch a wrestling event, and you look down, you see the ring, like, the ring doesn't look that big.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not. I mean, it's 20 by 20 with a little bit of space around it.
Yep.
But I mean, just think about how it's gone from those origins to where if the event didn't succeed, the company would have failed.
Yeah.
And to now, I mean, it's in stadiums because that many people want to see it.
Yeah, it's in stadiums, and it's a worldwide event. It's it's become more than just a wrestling show. It's a worldwide, all weekend event. People come from all over the world. People travel from all over the world to come watch WrestleMania.
Yeah. And you can tell that because throughout the event, they'll actually pan and they'll show people holding up different flags.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was watching, texted you earlier and said I was watching part of the walk culture thing that they did. And you realize they did this 5 years ago, by the way. I didn't.
I probably watched that one.
Well, yeah, because the last one they did was 33. But when they did like the 10 things you didn't know, or 10 pieces of whatever they're calling it about each WrestleMania, they go like each one has its own episode.
Right.
And so I was rewatching some of those, just saying, just so I could kind of refresh myself on a lot of the things. And, in the background, I saw somebody, I think it was with a Norwegian flag, so they came all the way from Norway. And you have some of the ones, they come all the way from like countries in Africa, country in the Middle East, which you would think that's almost like directly halfway around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only that, but the first one only had one language being put out there.
Right.
It was just English. Now they may have actually had Spanish subtitles, if
Yeah.
you had that capability on your TV, but they didn't have the announce table right there. That came later on. In fact, I think those guys, I think they ought to say, you know what, we're done. Just put us in the back.
Yeah.
We're tired of having people land on us. But yeah, they've had the Spanish announce table now. They have the what's another one they've had like down there with them?
Trying to think. They've had German, French,
Yep.
Hindi.
Yeah. Yep. Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mandarin Chinese.
I believe they have, yeah.
Let's see with some of the other ones. I noticed some more, but they always show them. I think Arabic also, because since they've had the deal going on with Saudi Arabia, and if you think, and all that was gradual. It's not like they said, okay, the first WrestleMania is this. Okay, now next year, we're going to bring in all this. No, it was a gradual thing. They just kept adding more and more. Yeah. Now it makes me kind of wonder if WrestleMania hasn't gotten too big for his britches. But
I've felt like it has for the last few years. Honestly, I wish it would go back to the smaller arenas. I wish it would go back.
Yeah.
I wish it would go back to the Garden and the smaller arenas. And it's like, you've done all the stadiums. Some of them multiple times. It's like, I get you want a huge crowd. I get they want to break all these attendance numbers and everything, but it's like the smaller atmosphere just made. I remember those pay-per-views in Madison Square Garden, that smaller, tighter atmosphere, just you could feel that watching it at home. I can't imagine how it was. I can't imagine that feeling being in the arena.
And the one thing I can compare it to, which is kind of ironic considering this weekend is actually conflicting with it, is the Final Four.
Right. Yeah.
Because the last time the Final Four was held anywhere but a football stadium, like a domed football stadium, was it 96? No, or maybe a couple years after that. Just because the audience for the Final Four and for the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship game is that it's just that in demand.
Yeah.
And I get WrestleMania has become that in demand. I don't think this year, is going to match it.
Yeah, I feel like the experience has gotten more in demand, but I feel like that they're, as far as match quality, that it's been going downhill for a long time as far as the card as a whole. You'll have a match here or there, but it's like I still feel like that they peaked at 17, because there really wasn't a bad match on that card.
Right. And I can definitely agree with that, because there's been some after that where they may have had a one or two particular matches that were just huge.
Yeah.
But then it was kind of balanced out by some other matches which weren't.
And like a lot of Manias have been, one or two match cards, and it's like, I'm trying to think, like, honestly, WrestleMania 20, the only match that I ever go back and watch is the main event.
And that's Eddie and Triple H, right?
No, that's Triple H, Benoit, and Shawn Michaels.
Oh, okay. Eddie was in a match before that. For some reason,
I take that back. I do watch the Eddie and Kurt Angle match, but other than those two, that's really it. And then, there's been some that have had like, 3 good matches on it, but it's like, for your biggest event of the year, you got to do better than that. It's right. Like when all these other smaller companies are putting on top to bottom quality pay-per-views, every match is like, even like AEW, Impact, like when Ring of Honor, before they took their hiatus, those pay-per-views were like, every match was no less than good. Most of the matches were right there, either great or right there at being great. And I feel like WWE is not really concerned with the match quality because they know they can sell just the WrestleMania experience. And they know because people buy the WrestleMania tickets before they know what match is on the card.
Yep. They used to. This year has been proven to be
this
kind of
year
an exception.
They've been struggling to sell tickets this year across the 2 nights. I like the 2-night concept, but if you're going to have the 2-night concept, then you've got to both nights have to be good.
Right. And the 2-night well, I think the 2-night concept would have also been a little better had they not released almost 100 people.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden they're having to throw a filler in there with Logan Paul and Johnny Knoxville, even though the Intercontinental title and the U.S. titles aren't being defended.
Yes, exactly. I think Finn Balor is going to be in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and on Friday on SmackDown, and then Ricochet is defending the Intercontinental title against Humberto and Angel in a triple threat match, which should be a really good match.
That should be.
But why are these 2 champions not booked for WrestleMania?
They should be on WrestleMania. And that kind of leads me into the whole point of, are they bringing these 2 celebrities on there, 2 B-list celebrities? These are not A-list celebrities. These are, well, they're niche market celebrities. Of course, the funny thing is wrestling. I'll admit it. Wrestling is a niche market. It really is. Because I could tell you, I can almost count the number on one hand. Some of my coworkers who were in, like right there, who are wrestling fans.
Right.
Now people, they say, I used to watch it. You always say that. Oh, I used to watch all the time.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That's, but the one card you always say, name your wrestling event. They always say WrestleMania.
Yep.
But with the celebrity presence this year, it's not doing anything positive for them because nobody is wanting to watch it to see Johnny Knoxville or Logan Paul.
Right.
Because first of all, Logan Paul, I'll be honest with you, he's kind of obnoxious.
Yes.
Johnny Knoxville is not as bad, but Johnny Knoxville, his whole thing is to be, the name of the show was Jackass,
but I feel like he at least has respect for the business.
He does. I will say that he does. Not as much as Bad Bunny. If they brought Bad Bunny on there, I don't think anybody would complain.
No, because that dude, man, that dude is.
Yeah.
To be a non-wrestler, that dude is fantastic.
Yeah, because we said that after last year's WrestleMania, when he came out, they were like, okay, there's a celebrity, and all of a sudden he got to work, and we're like, what did he just do?
Yeah.
And I think I texted you right then going, that dude has no business being that good.
No, he does not.
Man.
But your point on the celebrities, that's WrestleMania has devolved as far as celebrity involvement and the celebrity involvement adding to the product. Because you look at the first few WrestleManias, Mr. T's in the main event, definitely brought eyes to the product.
Cyndi Lauper was involved in that.
Cyndi Lauper was involved, who should be in the Hall of Fame. And
yes.
I will keep saying that until they put her in the Hall of Fame, because without her, one, that event wouldn't have worked as well as it did, because the rock and wrestling, explosion, she was a huge part of that. And I still feel like that she does not get the credit she deserves for that. But you look at those celebrities added to the product. WrestleMania 2, you had Roddy Piper, Mr. T in the boxing match. Still brought eyes to the product because Mr. T was still a huge star at that time. And you put Mr. T on the card, people are going to look.
Yep. People and they had other celebrities on that one as well, because WrestleMania 2 is the one they had 3 different locations.
Yes.
And you had like Mary Hart, from Entertainment Tonight. She was involved. Susan St. James, the actress, was involved. I think, was that the one Ricky Schroeder was involved?
Yeah.
And so then, especially one, because they had Liberace and the Rockettes and all these other people. That brought some people who were curious, like, what do you mean wrestling? Is that stuff that they do like in high school gyms
Yeah.
and union halls? And it's like, well, they're in Madison Square Garden. They've always been in Madison Square Garden. And by the way, this is a huge event. And so that brought the eyes. They were also in Sports Illustrated.
Yep.
That was like the main article in Sports Illustrated because I actually had that issue. I mean, I read it several times. And but like you said, about them devolving, because it did. I almost want to say it kind of peaked. What year was the Billionaire? Was that 2007?
I believe so. It was WrestleMania.
It had to been 2007. I hate to say it like this, but that's when Vince had to shave his head. And
Yes.
then when he came out, when the whole storyline about him with the exploded limousine,
Yeah.
he came out after that, of course, after the Chris Benoit situation.
Yeah.
And Vince came out. I mean, his hair still had not grown out yet.
Yeah.
But that actually brought a lot of eyes because they're like, and this is long before Trump even, well, he may have been thinking about running, but this was long before any of that.
Yeah.
This was the Billionaire versus Billionaire, and then that got a lot of people looking. That was also in Detroit.
Yep.
And in obviously not the Silver Dome, but whatever replaced the Silver Dome.
Yeah.
And remember that everybody should have been paying attention to Bobby Lashley back then because he was involved in that. But I can't think of since then. That was in 2007, so that was 15 years ago. Any celebrity involvement since then that's actually, like you said, brought positive eyes to the product.
But other than Bad Bunny, there really hasn't been, because I mean they keep pushing they've had they had Snooki from Jersey Shore on there. It's like, okay. It's like if you're going to have celebrities, they need to be able to bring eyes to the product. And I'm sorry, but the Jersey Shore was a train wreck. I'm not gonna lie. I watched it because it was a train wreck. It entertained me how stupid these people were. But the Jersey Shore crowd was not going to be paying attention to WrestleMania. They weren't. Right. Snooki was not bringing more eyes to the product. And it's like, in this day and age, it's like, can we just go back to the wrestling that without the celebrity involvement? I mean, if you want to have a celebrity come out, sing that national anthem, or have a celebrity host or something.
Yeah, and those make sense.
Yeah, those make sense. But to have like Logan Paul taking a spot at WrestleMania, Logan Paul, Pat McAfee, Johnny Knoxville. That's three non-wrestlers. I know Pat's a commentator, but he's just that. He's a commentator.
Yeah. He has wrestled in the past, and he is a legitimate athlete. Well,
he is a legitimate athlete.
He was a punter.
Yeah.
But he still, but he played in the National Football League. So,
and he did have an excellent match with Adam Cole at a takeover in NXT. But still, he's still taking a spot. I'm sorry. When your Intercontinental Champion and your United States Champion are booked on the Go Home show of SmackDown, instead of being booked on WrestleMania in championship matches,
that is called a waste of resources.
Yes,
they must not have an HR department. I'm serious.
Yeah, that is the definition of using your titles as props.
Yep.
And it's like, what happened to the mid-card titles being the workhorse titles?
You don't use this as a prop.
Exactly.
And I don't care what. And this is when I'll disagree with Jim Ross, because it's just a prop, No, it's what it represents.
Because that's the thing. If they were just props, then people like us would not be so excited to own a replica of a championship belt.
Exactly.
People would not pay that type of money to, because WWE has these deluxe versions of the WWE Championship that are like thousands of dollars. And people pay this for these replicas because the championship represents so much more than just being a prop. It's like you're holding it in your hand, and it's like, I know this is not the belt. For me, especially the past few years, I have a replica of the WWE Championship, and it's like sometimes I just look at it and it's like that's the belt that Kofi Kingston had.
Yeah.
That's the belt that Bobby Lashley had. That's the belt that Big E had. It's like it goes beyond, it goes beyond wrestling for
Mm-hmm.
for us. It's like what that belt represents. So I definitely have to disagree with Jim Ross. I definitely don't feel like that it's a prop.
And if they think they have too many titles, well, start shrinking them down. You
Yeah.
know, you don't need to have what they don't even call it a world champion. It's just the WWE title,
Yeah.
and then the Universal titles, like, and they're almost trying to say they're equal, even though WWE is just representing a company.
Yeah.
Where if you're going to call it that, that means that the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title both, just by title alone, represents more than the WWE.
Yep.
But then the Universal title,
by them just calling it the WWE Championship, it is just like when it was, when they used to say the World Wrestling Federation Championship. It's like, so you're saying that this is just a company championship and not indicative of this is the best wrestler in the world.
right? And I mean, it's just like in boxing. There's a few different companies, but they don't call it. I don't even know the names of boxing companies. Like the World Boxing Council. I don't know. I mean, but they all had their world title, and they treated them like they were world champions. And they're like, the belt represents, them. They wear the belt. They've earned the right to wear that belt. Saying they are the world title. And then later on, the companies would say, okay, we are going to unify their world title, our world title, because we want to know who is
the best. Yeah, the single world champion. Well, you look at all the different companies now. Impact Wrestling, they call it the World Championship. AEW, Ring of Honor, GCW. If GCW can call their title the GCW World Championship, WWE can do it, considering the belt says World Heavyweight Champion.
Yes.
I mean, it literally says on the belt. I'm looking at it right now. It literally says World Heavyweight Champion. World's Heavyweight Champion. Exactly.
Yes. And this is a replica of an older belt. But actually, they still use this belt in the NWA.
Yep. 10 pounds of gold. Yep.
10 pounds of gold. And
Matt Cardona's got it right now.
Actually, I think this one's about 7 pounds of brass, but but I mean, it's still, this is a very nice looking belt, but it's what it represents.
Yep.
And
it represents legacies. It's like, like that championship. You look at that championship, and that is Ric Flair, Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, Terry Funk, the Briscoes. That is wrestling royalty.
Yep. Tommy Rich. I mean, that's the man who signed it.
Yeah. Wildfire Tommy Rich. Yeah.
I mean, and
I look at that belt and I automatically think, and that's the thing too, for me, championship belts bring up memories, wrestling memories. I look at that belt and I see Harley Race standing in front of a briefcase with $25,000.
Take the money.
Putting a bounty on Ric Flair.
Take the money.
He's holding the belt, pointing at the money.
Take it.
Like I see the Intercontinental Championship. I think of Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. I think of Scott Hall as Razor Ramon
at WrestleMania 10 with the ladder match.
Yep. Or just any time. I mean, he was a 4-time Intercontinental Champion, and besides Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat, I associate that belt with Razor Ramon, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect,
Tito Santana, Greg Valentine,
Bret Hart, Roddy Piper, Steve Austin, Owen Hart, back when
Bulldog.
Back when that championship meant something, and it's like, why is this not defended at WrestleMania?
Yeah, because they're also saying that the two gentlemen who actually have those titles, meaning Ricochet and now Finn Balor.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to say the guy who Finn Balor beat,
Damian Priest.
Damian Priest, who is also phenomenal.
Yes.
Who
also doesn't have a match at WrestleMania. Who's probably going to get lumped into the Battle Royal on Friday.
Oh, but they have a mystery partner for Seth Rollins. They haven't said who it is. I mean, obviously it's a mystery partner. They'll say who it is, I guess, Saturday night. You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
For those of you who are listening audio only, Dwayne is wearing a T-shirt that says "The American Nightmare," so I'm going to assume it's Cody Rhodes. That's been the rumor flying around for a month.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, it very well could be.
Here's the thing: anybody other than Cody Rhodes is going to get booed out of the building, because I feel like everybody they have built this up to where it has to be Cody, because if it's not Cody, then it's like we don't care.
We're talking Royal Rumble 2014 level. Whenever Daniel Bryan did not come in as number 30, they booed Rey Mysterio.
Yes.
You don't boo Rey Mysterio.
No, and it wasn't even that it was Rey. It was that Daniel Bryan was not. It wasn't
Daniel Bryan.
Yep.
Now, how do you know they don't want to? They got to admit WWE does stand for Walk with Elias. It could be him.
No, I'm gonna say no. No, they have ruined. They have ruined Elias.
They have. And he's one of my favorites for a while.
I liked Elias, and they ruined it. And it's like, and they're so bad about that. It's like, why do you have to ruin everything? It's like, it was working. Just leave it alone.
Yeah. And like I said, the way they treat us, like, here, have a belt, but yeah, we really don't care about you.
Yeah, we really don't care. I mean, honestly, I'm surprised the women's tag team titles are being defended.
Oh, I'm surprised too. Even though I have that one, it's become pretty obvious. They've telegraphed this where they're going to split up. Somebody that's going to have the title, and I guess them two are going to feud. And one of these days, well, they're going to have to come out and admit, look, they call Carmella the Long Island Princess. She's from Boston. Yeah. I don't understand why they don't say, look, she's from Boston. I mean,
you know why they don't say that? Because Sasha Banks is from Boston.
True, but they could have them team up, because I know a lot of people like from that area, just who I was stationed with. But I know for some reason there seems to be a lot of them that I worked with. But they are very, very proud to be Bostonians, and they're they don't hate New York, but they are. It was more of a sports thing. They very anti-New York as far as things like that went. So for her to say she's from Long Island, at least it's better than her saying she's from like Manhattan.
Yeah,
because then it would be like, but the whole women's tag team, it's kind of ironic. I mentioned the Iconics earlier winning it. Very good tag team. They took the belts off them too soon, and I get Sasha and Bailey were also kind of upset because they thought they were going to have titles longer.
Yeah, they thought they were going to have a long reign with them, and they didn't.
Right. But they've kind of not treated those right. They should have a women's tag team. Even if they were to put Nikki Cross and Doudrop together, as like the women's Scottish Warriors, I don't know. To me, something like that would make sense. Putting oh my God, what's her name? Tall girl from Australia.
Rhea Ripley.
Yes. Actually, you know what? I wouldn't want to put her as part of the tag team thing, because she needs to have one of the women's titles.
Yes, and I don't know why I do like the team of her and Liv Morgan. They work well together.
Right.
But I still think Rhea Ripley is her and Bianca Belair. That's your future.
Yes.
Your women's division should be built around those two.
Two very legitimately athletic women who they look the part. They can do it in the ring. And I don't know how long Rhea Ripley's been wrestling, because I don't know enough about her, like her background in Australia. But we do know Bianca Belair's background.
Yeah.
Collegiate Division I collegiate level athlete. I mean, that right there speaks volumes.
Yes.
And just saying collegiate level athlete, then you start going, okay, then you say, well, Division 1. Um, that puts her in some pretty elite company right there.
Yeah.
And and she brings that to the ring. I've always said that she has that Cesaro strength, because that's the person I would compare her to the most is Cesaro, because you're going, well, I don't really see a lot of muscle, but I see no fat, because so it's got to be all muscle. And then all of a sudden she's doing these things, these feats of strength that you're like, does she really just hold her up with one hand?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so yeah, she is like Cesaro. Where she's doing these things that she's just wiry and just has ridiculous strength. And yes, she definitely the future. Rhea Ripley, same thing, because Rhea Ripley, they actually have kind of the same build.
Yeah. Rhea Ripley is she's been wrestling for it'll be 9 years this June. She debuted June 29th of 2013.
Was that WWE or was that
somewhere? No, that was just
in general, somewhere else.
Just in general, when she started wrestling.
Okay.
She she's 25 years old, so she's got a huge career ahead of her.
So she's been wrestling since she was 16.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And I'd put her and Shayna Baszler as another one, legit athlete.
Yes.
And and they're also a product when you go, okay, let's go for athletic first.
Yeah.
We can always change the way they look. If that's what you want to see, that you can change. You can't just make somebody be as good as Bianca Belair is in the ring, because you think about this. How long has she been wrestling? What, 3 years?
I think. Let me look.
Maybe 4. She's another one that she should not be as good as what she is, considering the short amount of time she's been in the ring. But man, she's good.
6 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it'll be 6 years this September. It was September 26, 2016. But she was trained. She was trained at the Performance Center. She's one of the Performance Centers.
She's a Triple H product.
Yeah.
But she's one of the ones that Jim Ross always talks about. They have it, and I believe she has it.
Well, yeah, she has it. Rhea Ripley has it. Rhea Ripley has a presence. Like, as soon as she steps on screen, it's like you're just like, okay, I'm watching her. And Shayna Baszler's like that. Shayna Baszler's always been that way for me since she walked into NXT. I watched every Shayna Baszler match I could, because she has that presence and that legitimacy, and that I still don't feel. People can say all they want to, but just my opinion, I don't feel like Ronda Rousey has that presence. She has worldwide name recognition, but she doesn't have that presence when she walks out there.
Because I have a feeling Ronda, and not to say she's not tough, so Ronda, if you're watching this, we like.
Oh, I haven't. Yeah, I haven't no doubt that she's tough.
Yeah, but
it comes across to where it's almost, to me, it's just my opinion, but it feels like to me whenever she comes out, it's almost like she has this air of, this is beneath me.
Yeah. And she said that 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That's
why I don't understand all this fan love all of a sudden, that everybody's so glad she's back, and it's like she despises fans.
Yeah.
She cannot stand them.
She said it. She said as much.
Yeah.
And it was not a work. It was a show.
No. Yeah.
She said wrestling's stupid. Wrestling fans are stupid. I'm gone. Bye.
Yeah.
And she got her paycheck and she left. And she said, well, I'm gonna go have a baby. Well, it took her 3 years to have a baby. And now she's back. Now granted, I will say it's impressive, because she just had her baby, back in September, October?
I believe so, yeah.
And she's
already, it was September.
Yeah, and she's already back in the ring. So yeah, it's pretty tough. So, but like you said, she just has this air of, I don't want to be here. I'm just doing this to collect a paycheck. but I'm still gonna be number one. You all are still beneath me. I'm still gonna be the champion, but I really don't like this.
Yeah, I really don't like this, but I still expect to be the number one, the focal point.
And that's something else that look at all the other past WrestleManias. The only other person I could actually think of that actually kind of had that mentality was Lesnar.
Hmm.
And this was back his first run.
Yeah,
And I'd say to a lesser extent Goldberg as well, because then they both left at the same time, had one of the well, like you said, you watch WrestleMania 20 for only 2 matches. Their match wasn't one of them.
no, their match is not one of them.
Yeah.
No.
When everybody's booing you out of the building because everybody, and I think that's the difference between also WrestleMania 1 and by the time 20 happened, I mean, pretty much everybody just about had the internet.
Yeah. Everybody knew what was going on, and they knew, like, people knew weeks before WrestleMania that Lesnar and Goldberg were leaving.
Yeah.
So it's like they weren't having it. It's like, why do you expect us to cheer for y'all when y'all are just walking out the door?
And Stone Cold, he stunned them both. And
Yep.
and did you see that the KO show with Austin is going to be like the last thing on? I think it's the first night.
I saw that, and I think it is dumb.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. WrestleMania is your biggest show of the year. A championship match. If you're going to have 2 nights, a championship match that main event both nights. And I get that it's not a proper match, but the last thing you should see at your biggest show of the year
is a
championship match. And what I'm not a fan of Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. I'm not a fan of this build. I'm not a fan of this being the championship match, but they should main event that match. Honestly, I take that back. Honestly, Becky and Bianca Belair should main event.
I was about to say, I'm looking through the list that first night right now,
but I'm saying that because, and I'm saying Charlotte and Ronda because I know they're not going to let Bianca and Becky main event. They're wanting Ronda as as the last match. Ronda has said in an interview yesterday that she was main eventing night 1. So I don't know. To me, the main event's the last thing you see. So if they have their match and then Stone Cold and KO is the main event, whether it's a wrestling match or not. That's the final thing people are going to see.
And are casual fans going to watch this just to see Stone Cold at the very end? I wouldn't think so, to be honest with you. I mean,
I wouldn't think so. They'll get the nostalgia fans. Sorry. They'll get the nostalgia fans that will stick around to see Stone Cold. My thing is, it would be better to put it as the opener. Get it done, and then focus on the wrestling.
Yep. Or not long after the opener.
Yeah, or not long after the opener.
Yeah.
Just don't put it near your championship matches.
Right.
Because then you're going to suck the wind out of the crowd, because they're going to be so hyped for Stone Cold, they're not going to have anything left when the ladies wrestle for the championships. And I feel like that's a disservice to these women.
And think about this: Stone Cold has not wrestled at all since I was about to call it Super Bowl, since WrestleMania 19.
Yep.
And
2003. It's been 19 years.
19 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. There were twice as many WrestleManias now to what there was when the last time he wrestled.
Yeah.
That actually threw me off for a second. I was like 19. Well, how about that? But there's a reason. I mean, he medically, the doctor said you have to stop.
Yep. I mean, between his neck issues, he's got 2 bad knees, and he had to wear braces on his last run. It's like, sorry, everybody can't be Sting.
Right. And one of the things, go ahead.
Sting's 62 years old and he's still,
jumping off balconies,
putting people through tables. But everybody can't be Sting. Sting knew when to take the time to give his body time to heal up.
right?
Sting knew what schedule to work to maximize his minutes.
And still remain relevant, because even back in the day he was hurt. But that's when the Crow started, and he's up there, him just appearing in the rafters. Oh, that was enough for people.
Yeah, and that was a year and a half.
Yeah.
He did that for a year and a half, and he was over the entire time and got more over as it went on. So, I mean, it can be done if you're willing to commit to long-term booking.
Now, some of the other notes I put in here, this is Super Bowl level. I mean, it really is. This is the Super Bowl every year in wrestling.
This is the Super Bowl of wrestling. That's why all these other companies, have their shows. They have big shows on this weekend because they know so many more eyes are going to be on the product than it is at any other time of the year. That's why Impact's having a show on Friday. Ring of Honor's having a show on Friday. AEW's got Rampage. GCW's got a show this weekend. Trying to think who else.
I know around here there are some indies that are putting on shows. The NWF is not one of them. Well, a lot of their personnel are actually traveling to Dallas,
right?
Because that's one of the things. Just talking to some of the wrestlers, they say wherever WrestleMania is, they will travel to it.
Oh yeah,
because they're like, this is what I do. So I want to, even if I can't do it as a wrestler, I would still like to be a part of it, at least as a fan. Because I mean, they know some of the ones who are in it. I mean, just it's their profession, and it's a small profession.
Yep.
But just like the Super Bowl, a couple years ago, the Patriots and the Rams. Would you call that a good Super Bowl?
No.
I mean, it was.
No.
That one was painful to watch because it was. Yeah. I mean, they set records for ineptitude.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it was terrible. It was boring. It was, there was nothing exciting about it at all.
Yeah, and, I mean, that's not what they were going for. They were trying to score. They just nobody was scoring.
Yeah.
But just like the Super Bowl, not every WrestleMania event has been good.
Yep. WrestleMania, I felt like WrestleMania 4 was good because it had the tournament. But then you had WrestleMania 5, which was
bloated.
It was
bloated. That one had way too many matches.
It had too many matches, but the only thing anybody ever remembers is Savage and Hogan.
Hogan, yeah.
WrestleMania 6, Warrior and Hogan for the title.
Yep.
WrestleMania 7. Unfortunately, the only thing I remember is Hogan and Slaughter for the title.
7, I remember. This one always gets pushed up. For some reason, people think this is the most important thing about 7. It's when Savage and Elizabeth reunite. Yes,
the retirement match, which was honestly the absolute best thing on that card. But that, to me, that was the Ultimate Warrior's best match that he's ever had.
Because he had it with Savage.
And they put on a spectacular match, and really that match, to me, that was the best match on the card because Hogan and Slaughter was like, oh my God, it was just Wresthold City.
Yeah. And that was also something we didn't know was happening, and we didn't know it until, of course, like 30 years later or 23 years later, that was the beginning of the streak.
Yes.
But that match itself was not a good match.
No. Jimmy Snuka got spiked and got pinned, and that was it.
And then WrestleMania 8 I thought was pretty good.
It was a pretty good show, but it's Savage and Flair for me.
That should have been the main event instead of Hogan going, hey, I'm Hulk Hogan. I'm going to be in the last match no matter what.
Yeah, and that's the thing with WrestleMania. It should always be the championship.
Always. Yes.
A world championship should be defended in the main event. Like that never should have been Hogan and Sid. I don't know who thought that was a great idea for Hogan and Sid to main event at WrestleMania. Nothing
Hogan did.
against Sid.
Hogan thought it.
Given the right opponent,
Yeah.
Sid's had good matches, but he wasn't going to get a good match with Hogan.
No.
Because Hogan's not going to give you a good match.
And-
Hogan's going to give you a Hogan match.
Yeah, and that one not really rest holds, but it was punch, kick, body slam, leg drop,
Yep.
That but meanwhile, Flair and Savage put on a really.
They put on a classic.
Oh, I mean, Bret Hart and Roddy Piper.
Intercontinental title.
Yeah, because we had. I mean, I called him a friend of ours, refereed that match because we interviewed him on here. So
yes,
everybody we've interviewed, we now consider a friend.
Yep.
So. In case you don't know, we're talking about Roger Ruffin, the owner of the Northern Wrestling Federation. He refereed at WrestleMania 8, and he said his biggest moment was actually accompanying Reba McEntire to the ring to sing the national anthem, which I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it really is.
WrestleMania 9.
Oh Lord, no! Good God,
Nothing.
No!
That was terrible. That's up there with one of the absolute worst WrestleManias ever.
I think the only thing from that one I kind of remember, and you got to think about who was involved, was Shawn Michaels and Tatanka, the opening match. Because them two.
It was a good match, but then the ending was stupid because it was a double DQ.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't have Shawn lose a title because he was early in his run as champion. Tatanka had an undefeated streak, so they couldn't have him lose yet and break the streak. So it's like great match. Dumb ending. For me, the only thing really that stands out for me for WrestleMania 9 is the Undertaker's entrance. The Undertaker's match was garbage, but the entrance when he comes out and he's got the vulture on the thing, and it's like the whole presentation was fantastic, and he looked like death coming down the aisle. But then they put him in the ring with the Giant Gonzalez, and it's like,
and then the match looked like death.
Yeah, it's like you saw him in WCW when he was El Gigante. He couldn't move then. He couldn't give you a match then. Why would you think it was going to work now? And then you put him in that bodysuit.
I'm telling you, that bodysuit, and I'm pretty sure you saw it on PBS when we had to watch it all in Slim Goodbody. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. I'm like, hey, they got a great big Slim Goodbody suit. Once again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go Google it.
Yeah.
It was actually something that we had to watch in school. And I had to come think of it. It's kind of weird and creepy.
Yeah. I never understood why we had to watch it, but okay.
It's like that dude's wearing a flesh-colored bodysuit with like intestines on it. But anyway.
But we had to watch it, and we got out of classwork that day because we had to watch that. So
there you go. But yeah, 10, of course, 10 was a good one. Bret Hart and Owen. The ladder match for the IC title.
Yeah.
It had a couple other matches that weren't so great. But we did see the Quebecers double suplex Mabel.
We did see that. Yes.
That was impressive. I don't care if it was two of them. It was still impressive because I don't think Mabel knew how to kind of help them out.
No, he didn't.
His center of gravity was just way too low, and they still managed to get his big butt up and boom, over.
Yeah. For me, that Mania is a 3-match card. It's Owen and Bret for the opener, Shawn, HBK and Razor for the ladder match, and then Bret and Yokozuna.
Yep. And then 11. Well, that one is better than 9, but that's when the main event was actually LT and Bam Bam.
Okay. 11, where the main event should have been Shawn Michaels and Diesel for the championship, which is the only match on that card that I liked. I watched that pay-per-view live.
Really?
And that was the only match that I liked.
Yeah, because even Bret Hart and Bob Backlund, you would think on paper that's going to be a good match, and it wasn't.
No.
No. And Bret Hart said it is his worst pay-per-view match ever. And Bret Hart says a lot of negative things. For him to say that was his worst ever. Yeah. That was with Bob Backlund.
Yeah.
Roddy Piper going, what do you say? That didn't help matters.
No, it didn't, because he just kept screaming into the microphone, and it's like, Roddy, just stop.
Just stay out of the way. And then some of the other 12, the one drawback with 12, the Iron Man match, I thought was a good match. I mean, because it was Brett and Sean.
Yeah.
However, it being an hour plus meant you couldn't have a lot of other matches.
My only knock against that match is that I feel like there should have been some falls in there to
Yeah.
add to the drama instead of going, 60 minutes with no falls and then having to do sudden death. If you had some falls and they had been tied at the time limit and then went to sudden death, that would have added more drama to it, because as soon as you went, even then, and I watched that one live too, even then, when it went 60 minutes without a single fall and they announced sudden death, I'm like, well, Sean's winning. There's no
Yeah.
way he's not winning. I
Yeah.
mean, you kind of knew that going in, but it's when they booked it that way, it's like Sean's winning. So it kind of took a little bit of the drama out of it of, is Sean actually going to win this or not?
And then 13, like the only match that was good on there, as far as I remember, was Brett and Stone Cold. And you had the I Quit match.
Oh yes, that was an absolute terrible pay-per-view. But Brett and Stone Cold was the diamond in the rough right there.
Yeah, that was the double turn. That was still considered a classic.
Yeah.
The main event of that one was Sid and the Undertaker for the belt.
Yeah.
And apparently Sid pooped himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
yeah.
And of course, when Undertaker picked him for the tombstone, he had to smell that.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I mean, after that, I mean, they do start to become kind of blurry for me. I mean,
yeah, they just kind of, like I
Yeah.
said, it's like after that, it's like
Oh, that was your
it's
phone.
just- yeah, it
Oh,
was mine.
Oh, actually, I just got a text from Justin. He says, you know how Adam has made our logo for TNC Sports Talk? Would you like a custom logo made from Adam Lee? That's the guy. I was like, I'll tell him, hey, I'm going to text him back and say, I'm going to talk to Dwaylen about this. I'll say, I'm going to run it by Dwaylen, because, but what he doesn't know is not until he watches the show, because Justin actually, he watches us every episode. So
Yeah.
I'll run it past Dwaylen, because he does know that anything that affects the show,
Right.
he knows that, because I mean, we have it's a joint collaboration. So I don't think there's really anything like that where we have like a logo change.
Yeah.
Obviously, I run past Dwaylen, but I do like the idea. Okay. All right. And yeah, I like that, Justin. Your text that actually made it onto the show. So, but like you were saying, a lot of the kind of the almost like a sine wave or a cosine wave.
Yeah.
They say nobody talks about the cosine wave. It does the same thing. It's just off a little bit.
Yep.
But there's no tangent wave though. It just kind of.
Yeah. Just.
I've tried it, and it's like, yeah, we're that much nerds. And speaking of nerds, you know what? I've got a show.
Mm-hmm.
I may wait for tomorrow's show because I don't already have it prepped. But
okay.
But I'll get it prepped and I'll show. For those of you listening in or watching, you'll have to catch tomorrow's as well, because I have an old picture of me and Dwaylen that you'll look and go, there is no way. But I'll say, yeah, that's us. But anyway, but part of the reason I think why it goes kind of ups and downs is because there's a lot of repeat matches. I mean, yeah, Rock and Stone Cold, don't get me wrong. I mean, they put on 3 good matches, 3 great matches, really.
But at least they got spread out. Like,
yeah, there was 15, 17, 19.
Yeah. And each of those matches were different too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, 2 were for the championship. 1 was basically the last one was for bragging rights. But every one of those, it was a different match each time. So you didn't get, you didn't get bored with it.
Roman and Brock, it's the 3rd time we're having it. Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, they did it twice. Undertaker and Triple H did it twice, 3 times.
17. 17 was the first one.
Oh, then they had,
And then they had the what was it? They had the
end of an era, which was
the
the last
end of
time.
their Hell in a Cell, and the one the year before that, 27 and 28. Yeah.
3 times.
Yep.
And I think that kind of can also hurt when you're like, well, I mean, yeah, like I said, they can put on different types of matches, but at the same time, you're like, give us something different. So, I mean, it can, not even intended to, it can kind of become repetitive.
Yeah.
And that's why they need new blood in there. But no, they had new blood, but they released them all.
Yeah.
But I'll have to tell you what Justin just texted me.
Okay.
Because I don't want to, if we do this, I don't want to give it away.
Right.
But all right, cool. But yeah, I mean, but just to see how something goes from being in, an arena, because that's what Madison Square Garden is. It's a bigger arena.
Yep.
And it's had its drawbacks where the crowds were down, because I think the one at WrestleMania 13 was like their lowest crowd ever.
Yeah, that was the Rosemont Horizon.
Yeah.
But they call it it's called the All-State Arena now, but
yeah. But that one, had a bad crowd. But I think the worst buy rate ever too.
yeah.
And then they've gone to where now they're in stadiums and they're filling the stadiums, but now the product is starting to fall, and they can't just rely on we're WrestleMania anymore.
Yeah. And they don't have the Undertaker streak to bring people in either, because for years, once it got to where I feel like WrestleMania 18 is where people were really starting to be like, the streak means something. This is the streak. That was probably me.
Oh, it was. I was. I'm here. Shbing, shbing.
I usually have it on silent, but hoping the girls are out, and with the weather being bad, I didn't want to miss a message if she messaged me. So, but what was I saying? I forgot. Sorry.
About 18 was the last, and then it went ba-ding, ba-ding.
Yeah, 18 was where people really started paying attention to the streak.
Yeah.
Even the Undertaker indicated it, because once he beat Flair, he did like this, and people were like, "Oh, I did not realize he's 10-0."
Yeah.
Jerry Lawler even said it on commentary once the match was over. So then after that, every year it was like people bought tickets to WrestleMania because they knew the streak was going to be on the line, and who was the Undertaker going to beat, and or who was going to attempt to break the streak, especially when it got into Undertaker's latter years, where he was putting on classic matches, where he was like a super worker there for a while, and people were like, "Well, Undertaker's on the card, streak's on the line. I'm going to WrestleMania."
Yeah. And
but when they broke the streak at 30, then they just lost their selling point. And it's like, because even then they were coasting. They were riding the streak's coattails to get those WrestleMania tickets sold. And now it's like they don't even have that, and then they don't give you a good card, because really this year's card, what have you got? You've got a bunch of matches that could be on Raw or SmackDown. You really, the only true WrestleMania caliber matches, you got Becky and Bianca, Charlotte and Ronda, Roman and Brock. You got 3 matches over 2 nights that are truly WrestleMania caliber matches.
Yeah, because even like the New Day against Sheamus and Ridge Holland,
that's a SmackDown main event.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a TV match. McIntyre, Happy Corbin, that's a TV match.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're saying these TV matches, because they've been having them on TV.
Yes.
They're just moving it
On Raw, they just had a handicap match with. They just had another match. Actually, it wasn't. Yeah, it was a handicap match. It was McIntyre versus Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss. Madcap Moss takes the pin again, and it's like that's another thing that has devolved from WrestleMania. They never used to give away their WrestleMania matches on free TV. They never used to have, oh, well, we've got like the women's tag team match. We've got a fatal four-way for the women's tag team titles. So what do? Monday night on Raw, we have an 8-man tag team match with, the two heel teams and the two face teams.
And
you've just given away your entire championship match.
Yep. I mean, they've been going through that formula also. I mean, and not just necessarily for WrestleMania, but definitely for WrestleMania. And I guess, are they trying to say, okay, well, here's what can happen, here next in 6 days at WrestleMania, because with these two, when they're going at it, that's not how you set it up. I mean, you have to, if you want to have them get into a fight, you have them getting to like some other kind of confrontation, not, or we're going to have a match before they have their match.
Or at least look what they did with Becky and Bianca. Becky was going to cut Bianca's braid, and Bianca turned it around on her and cut Becky's hair. That's a good confrontation to build toward the match. But don't have them in 3 or 4 matches leading up to WrestleMania, because then I'm not going to want to watch the match at WrestleMania. I've seen this 5 times. Why do I want to watch this?
And you look at WrestleMania 6, Hogan and Warrior, and this was a match I know you and I both would have been like, yes, I want to see that match because that's Hogan and that's the Warrior. Warrior was the Intercontinental Champion at the time.
Yep.
And he was the only person, who may be worthy of being the world champion over Hulk Hogan. That's what we thought at the time.
Yeah.
At the time. Now look back at when there's knowing what we know now, but they didn't have them constantly having matches against each other in tag team fashion on their shows, on Superstars or whatever the other one was called. I don't remember.
Was it? I think it was Primetime Wrestling
or Wrestling Challenge. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
They didn't have that, where they actually had them, their first kind of a meeting in a way was actually in the Royal Rumble that year.
Yep.
And I mean, everybody was like, oh, here we go. They're actually going to, and then the Warrior got thrown out, and then all of a sudden he ran off like an idiot. Nobody understands what he was doing there, but that's another story.
I don't think he understood what he was doing.
Yeah. But that, I mean, made people go, look, they were almost not really a pull apart, but I mean, that's kind of what it was. It was in the Rumble. They just happened to be, they bumped into each other, and boom, there we go. Hogan and Savage, the year before at 5, they also had a confrontation in the Rumble. That was before you got lust in your eyes for Elizabeth. That was before the Saturday Night's Main Event. And a lot of people had forgotten that Hogan and Savage had already had a run against each other when Savage was the Intercontinental Champion. I mean, but it was like 4 years. God, it was like 4 years prior.
Yeah.
Or 3 years prior. And, but everybody knew, yes, Savage is a formidable opponent for Hogan, even though Savage at this point had the world title. Hogan had to try to get it back from him.
Yeah.
Rock and Stone Cold, their first kind of a confrontation was really also in a Rumble. Rock wasn't in the Rumble, Stone Cold was, but the Rock came out, and they had
him
yeah. But they didn't have to constantly, go against each other just so we show you what happened if they go, we're going to show it to you for free. Now go pay for it. No, I ain't paying for that.
Yeah.
I've already seen it.
Yeah. I've seen it 5 times on Raw. I'm not paying for it to see it again.
Yeah. And they have a pull apart, the whole thing with, I will say this, they're doing Brock and Roman correct.
Yes.
Ish,
Yeah.
Because they're having confrontations without actually touching each other.
Yeah.
They're breaking like vehicles, which, by the way, WWE, if you want to save money, stop destroying vehicles.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But the pull aparts because I mean, when they do have when they have not the referees, not I'm like, they had that many referees backstage. You know, all of a sudden you have 20 referees running up. It looks like a bunch of zebras all of a sudden having like a herd of zebras. And when the wrestlers are the ones pulling them apart, because I used to love that back, in the Mid Atlantic, World Class, all the old territories, even the WWF used to do that.
Yep.
That's when okay, this is serious. I mean, they're pulling them apart. I mean, this is serious, and that leads to wanting to watch a match between somebody.
Yeah.
Not they're in a tag team, and sometimes that can work. Because I think was it MJF and CM Punk, they did that a little bit.
Yeah, but MJF always avoided CM Punk.
Exactly, and so that'd be the reason why you would do that.
Yeah, unless he had the advantage. That was the only time he would tag in, and as soon as Punk started to mount some offense,
he's out.
He's out. If you do it that way, yeah, it works, because then you're like,
I want to see him get his hands on him and start pounding him.
Exactly.
Oh,
but you can't just throw people in a tag match and be like, okay, like you said, we just gave it to you for free, but Sunday I need you to pay for that.
Right. And or go get the network and or go watch it. Duke, North Carolina, who's going to be watching that?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'll be honest with you. This is a wrestling podcast, and I'm going to be watching Duke in North Carolina.
Yeah. Now,
part of that is because, Dwayne and I are big North Carolina fans.
Yeah.
And there's so much in this one, but
I mean, I've got a very busy weekend, so I will be watching everything on my phone whenever I get a chance.
Yeah.
But I will be paying attention to the Final Four.
Right. And I don't know which game is first. Do you know?
I don't know. I just need Kansas to lose.
I always want Kansas to lose. Of course, I've been not liking Villanova either, so I need both of them to lose. Either way, really we're calling this the evolution of WrestleMania. We're almost calling it. In fact, you know what? I'll title it this: the evolution and de-evolution of WrestleMania.
Yep.
Because when I was doing in my notes, I mean, I even got to think about it. I was like, it seems kind of bloated. Some of the early events actually had matches that actually did not have any kind of story whatsoever.
Yep.
Now some of the stories they have are not the greatest.
No.
And is it bloated in a sense? I mean, that's because it
really is.
Because you can't just throw WrestleMania and expect everybody to come if they're seeing, look, the product is garbage.
Yeah.
And I'm not traveling all the way from Finland to watch something.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So especially when travel restrictions have not completely gone away either.
Nope, not yet.
So but anyway, we'll see. I mean, and right now we're planning on being here tomorrow for the actual preview.
Yep.
That's why we don't want to say too much. We're doing the same thing. We're doing it before we do it.
Yeah.
That's why I'd say, okay, yeah, but I didn't want to say too much about Saturday and Sunday. But tomorrow we'll have the preview of that, and just to kind of wrap this up, hopefully it starts getting better. Hopefully, I mean, I don't want them to have a bad event just to.
No, I want them to have a good show. It's just on paper, it's not really shaping up to be that.
And from what we've talked about, I mean, it's been heading that direction anyway.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, you need to go give your voice a rest. So,
yeah.
All right, dude, I will talk at you tomorrow. God bless.
All right, man. God bless.